Hello and welcome to this episode of the Be Free podcast. And today I've got a super interesting guest for you, and I think you're really going to relate to her story and hopefully leave feeling inspired and empowered and yeah, kind of raring to go with things. But I've got the lovely Dr. Jeanne with me here today, and Jeanne is a skincare innovator, mental health advocate, entrepreneur, and mother. She built her successful career in international human rights law, faced a life-changing diagnosis of panic disorder in 2015, and instead of letting it define her, she used it as a catalyst to create FIGGI Beauty, a skincare line designed for sensitive souls, and FIGGI Soul is a platform dedicated to open, honest conversations around mental health. FIGGI is currently sold online and at various indie beauty retailers across the USA, with two major retailer collaborations set to be announced soon. And I noticed one of them had been announced, so I don't know if there's two, so I'm like super excited about that for you. And we've just launched in the UK and an incredible store in Scotland. So
Yes.
woohoo! So yeah, like Dr. Jeanne has this incredible perspective on ambition, success. You started off in human rights law, but do you want to just do a little intro to who you are, and then we can
Yeah.
dive right in.
Yeah. So my PhD is in international laws of war and criminal law. I practiced in that for 17 odd years. I had my own consultancy. It was super successful. I really loved what I was doing. But in 2015, I was diagnosed with panic disorder, and that kind of derailed things. And I had to make different decisions. And that's how Figgy kind of came about.
Yeah, amazing. So obviously, human rights law is quite an interesting, it's a bit of like a path switch, but what kind of inspired you to go down that path, to human rights law, and how has that kind of helped
Yeah.
where you are today?
I think I always wanted to be in a position of service. I just
Mhm.
always knew that's what I wanted to do. I came from a very difficult background, divorced parents, each with their own issues, a lot of generational trauma, childhood sexual abuse. It was just a very chaotic young life.
Mhm.
And I think I kind of naturally gravitated towards a career where could feel like I was righting the wrongs of my past almost.
Mhm.
Um, and when I went to study law, I always knew from the beginning I wanted to go into legal aid. So I remember when we were in our final year and everybody's kind of racing to secure their internships, or what we call in South Africa candidate attorneys or clerkships.
Mhm.
Um, there was this major stress about getting into the big five law firms and having a competitive salary as a clerk and kind of getting into your corporate career. And I was just concerned with whether legal aid was going to have enough money in the budget for another
Yeah.
candidate attorney. I never wanted to go anywhere else. So yeah, I started my career there. I grew into a supervising attorney there. Um, and my initial plan was to go into the United Nations, but I found it so difficult with all the red tape and the bureaucracy. So I just decided to do it myself. And
Mhm.
I did my PhD, did the consultancy, and it just took off. It was just a great
Wow.
success.
Wow. That in itself is such a empowering insight for people, to be able to turn such challenges into, something so powerful and supporting others. Yeah, you can see where that path came from. And I guess the legal field is, very black and white, and you probably
Yeah.
felt like you had more control and structure and yeah, absolutely amazing. And then obviously you mentioned things changed when you got diagnosed with panic disorder. So you had this moment in your career that kind of changed things for you. What happened there?
I don't think, I think when you look at my story, it seems like it's kind of tied to something that happened in my career that led to this, that made me
Mm,
want to switch over. And I get a lot of questions about how I was brave enough to make this switch and to go into something different and change careers. But I always have to remind people, like, I did not want this.
yeah.
I was very happy in my career. That was my identity that I had created for myself. I would not give it up if it was my choice.
Mhm.
This was really life smacking me in the face. Like,
Yeah.
um, I mean, now I can look back on it and say I'm grateful some
Mhm.
days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it happened, it definitely wasn't. So I think the diagnosis was literally just a kind of conclusion to a story that had been coming for a very long time. I
Hmm.
was always very anxious. And I think it was part of my upbringing. That was my survival mode, making sure everything is okay, nobody is angry, nothing's out of place. I can just apologize. Like, and back then there wasn't an understanding for something like anxiety. It was, you're so sensitive. Why are you always crying? Why do you need to be this way? Why can't you just take things less personally?
Hmm.
I had a hard time making friends, and when I did, I was very attached to one friend and super loyal. Um, when I started working and entering the adult world, my stress levels were always a lot higher than
Yeah.
anybody else. I was always overthinking, always over, you know, dramatizing things, even for myself, problem-wise. And I think it was just this pure concept of the body always remembers that caught up with me in
Hmm.
my 30s, because when this happened to me, when I was diagnosed with panic disorder, it wasn't a linear thing. It wasn't something happened to me, they said you had panic
Yeah.
disorder. It was a year and a half of journeying through tests before the diagnosis was made.
Hmm.
So when this happened to me, I was actually arguably in the best place of my life. A
Hmm.
very happy marriage, a extremely supportive and protective husband that took me out of a very difficult situation. I loved my career. My consultancy was going perfectly. We were in a good financial position. So, textbook wise, everything that had happened to me in the past shouldn't be bothering me anymore because now I have this perfect life. But I think it was that proverbial sigh of relief
Yeah.
that brought the barriers down almost,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it was like, okay,
Mhm.
we're coming a knocking.
Yeah, like you found that place of safety. And I've coached many people over the years with anxiety and depression, and so many women come in that same position that you're describing of like, I have no right. Like, I have no right to feel anxious or upset or emotional. Like, people have less money than me. I've got a beautiful home. I've got a beautiful family. And sometimes, it, as you meant, like, say there, it doesn't make sense at that point. But when you go back a bit, or the accumulation of things sometimes leads to it. And how symptom wise, how did your panic disorder present for you, just for anyone that's listening or watching?
Again, I think it was something that was always there. I just didn't understand that it had something to do with panic disorder. And I think I need to lead by just saying that I was diagnosed with panic disorder. And I mean this out of the deepest parts of my soul. I obviously struggle with this, so I understand how difficult it is. And I'm
Mm,
not taking away from anybody's struggle. But if we look at what's going on in the world right now and the conversation around anxiety, I was diagnosed with it before it was kind of in quote marks
yeah.
cool to have anxiety. It was very stigmatized.
Hmm.
I didn't even know something like that existed. I
Yeah.
was so angry at my doctors for this diagnosis because I was convinced that they didn't know what was wrong with me. So they were just going to tell me it's stress because they literally don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
I never ever knew this even existed. So, if I think back on it before my diagnosis, anywhere from once to twice a month would have like food poisoning type of symptoms, vomiting, diarrhea, upset stomach, but really like food poisoning where you're like for 3 days you can't
Mhm.
eat, you don't feel well, mi debilitating migraine attacks. I was always shaking, I was never, I call it like buzzing. It was like I was always buzzing. I've always had difficulty sleeping. I've always had difficulties with night terrors, and sometimes sleep paralysis, which is horrifying.
Mhm.
Um, and just real control with stress and understanding why I can't just be normal.
Mhm.
But my first real honest panic attack happened just before my diagnosis, which led to my diagnosis. I was away for a trip. um, Everything was completely normal, normal day, had my meetings, went to the hotel. Then I started losing vision. My vision started going in and out, and I thought I was having a migraine attack because that happens sometimes when I get migraines, and that I'm just hungry. Then the room kind of started spinning around me. I lost feeling in my left arm and hand. I lost feeling in my toes, in my leg, in my knee, all the way down from my knee. Then I started having these really bad heart palpitations where it feels like your heart's like jumping out of your chest and slamming back in. Difficulty breathing, this kind of choking sensation. And then the worst parts was this absolute, complete knowing belief that I am going to die. Um, and then this really isolating experience in my mind that I'm going crazy and that nobody's going to believe me. So I thought I was having a stroke. And that's kind of what catapulted into the whole emergency room, barrages of tests, eventual anxiety disorder diagnosis to eventual panic disorder
Yeah.
diagnosis. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think many of the people who are part of my community will be able to relate to this because they have followed my journeys kind of similar to yours in some respects. And as you're speaking there, I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, I know that feeling so well.
Yeah.
And even just what you're saying, and I know a lot of people will relate to, when you were younger, being classed as the emotional one, being too sensitive, trying to keep the peace. A lot of my audience will be able to relate to that as well, I'm sure. So yeah, it's rubbish that we have to experience these things, but it has taken you down this, new path. And that's how I used to work in sales and marketing before, and then that's how I'm now in this path because of my own panic disorder, anxiety, and depression. But for other people that are listening, like how would you suggest that they can begin to reinvent themselves, after burnout or mental health issues? Because I guess there is that stigma that you mentioned sometimes and that fear of change, like, oh, I should be able to cope with this, or this is the career I chose for myself, so this is what I have to stick at. Like, how would you suggest that, or any advice for people that are making that change or thinking about it?
Well, first of all, I would say, why would you want to reinvent yourself? You've been given this body, this wiring, this construction of soul and spirit. So I would start with the question of why do you want to? Is it because of what the world is telling you you are not? Is it because of how you see others interacting in ways that go beyond your natural limitations, which is completely normal because other people have other natural limitations?
Mhm.
And once you've figured that out to take the next step, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I love that because it's peeling it back to that authenticity, isn't it? Often
Yeah.
people do feel anxious or misaligned or depressed or whatever because they are living a misaligned life that isn't authentic to them. So I love that it's not so much the reinvention as coming back to what's right for you as an individual, maybe.
Yeah, and I think if you see it that way, it becomes much easier for you to show up in the world as the person you would like to be. Because when you can peel back those layers, you get to this place where we all tend to think, especially if we're in this position and it's so normal, I've already been through so much, I've already struggled so much, and now you're telling me I have to do this and this and this extra.
Mhm.
But you get to a place where it's actually a gift to understand the responsibilities you have towards yourself and towards others. Because if you can understand the question behind or the answer behind the why, you can start to put the pieces back together and say, well, these are the parts of my puzzle I'm in control over. So I need to take responsibility for that and how I show up in that and towards others. And these are the parts of my puzzle that don't fit and that aren't mine to keep. So, I'm just going to move those to the side, and whoever wants to take that, it's up for grabs. It just, I think it has the ability to put you on a path where you're able to find your directions in life a little better.
Mhm. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. And then where did the idea for Figgy come from? Because it seems so far removed
Yeah.
from the human rights law version, where did that come from?
I mean, if you look at it on paper, it does seem very far and wide, but actually it's not, because it really goes back to my need to serve, my willingness to serve, this whole thing we just spoke about in terms of authenticity. When I was diagnosed, the main goal was to keep this a secret because
Mm,
I could not show up in the legal profession as someone that's defective and that can't handle stress. So there was a lot of shame around my diagnosis, and also because I came from a family history with deeply ingrained undiagnosed mental illnesses that cause a lot of bizarre behavior. I was afraid of being diagnosed because I didn't want to be that. Um, so I needed to find somewhere that I could show up as who I am and take ownership of that in on my own terms, in my own narrative, um, and in a way still try to give back. And panic disorder, when you think about it, most people think it's somebody that has panic attacks. While that's true, that's not that's like maybe less than a third of the puzzle. It's
mhm,
much more all-encompassing than that. You have digestive issues, you've got migraine issues, you've got all sorts of physical symptoms that you have to take care of every single day. And one of my biggest external symptoms was super sensitive skin.
mm,
So I found this connection between rooibos, which is a South African tea, um, my natural kind of need and talent to heal and put this all together in something beautifully packaged that can look at an external symptom of anxiety, while Figgy Soul, which is the counterpart of Figgy Beauty, helps you with the internal struggle in
mm,
understanding what's going on inside that's manifesting on your largest organ, the outside.
mhm. Amazing. Wow, what beautiful transition. And what makes Figgy unique in the beauty space?
So, first of all, we use as our main ingredient rooibos, which is a plant that only grows naturally in a very small part of South Africa. There are decades of scientific research behind it. Drinking it as a tea has been proven to be cancer preventative, diabetes preventative, a whole host of other things. And used on your skin, it's an incredible anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. So it calms and it soothes, and it's really just nature's gift to sensitive skin.
Mhm,
I've built these formulations. It's not something that I sought and then packaged. I was part and parcel of deciding every one of these ingredients. I went back to school. I did my certificate in cosmetic chemistry because I wanted to understand, how do you put this together? So the rooibos is definitely something that sets us apart. And the other thing that sets us apart is that we are honestly here to make a difference and to present effective skincare to dry and sensitive skin. We don't claim to be anything to anybody else. We don't clean wash, we don't green wash, we don't fear monger. the ingredients that we're free from are ingredients that have been scientifically proven to be common irritants to sensitive skin.
Hmm.
So things like fragrance, essential oils, linalool, limonene, we're all free from that. But we don't say it's bad because it's not. If you don't have a reaction to fragrance, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using it.
Hmm.
So we're very clear on our messaging. Our products are very well researched and developed, and people just love it. And you can feel the love and the attention to detail that's gone into the skincare.
Hmm. Amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, just out of interest, so what kind of products do you have and where are they stocked?
So our products are very minimal because when you have sensitive skin, you want to go
Yeah.
back to the pure basics and foundations. So we have a double cleanse, which is your makeup remover, and then your gel cleanser to take off everything else. We have a day cream, which is antioxidant day cream to help you with all those free radicals. And it's not formulated with vitamin C because that can irritate sensitive skin. We use rooibos and green algae and vitamin E. And you have a night cream. And this night cream is with tripeptides to help collagen and elasticity and all of the deeply healing agents like provitamin B5, jojoba oil, um, panthenol, and all those goodies. So that's kind of your basic system. Then we launched two new products this year, the Miracle Mist, which just won the Universal Beauty Award for the best Miracle Mist or best toning mist. And you can use that for everything from bug bites to setting your makeup.
Amazing.
Um, and these products you can find it at our store in Hamilton in Scotland. You can find us online, figgybeautyuk.com. Um, we're heading into some retailers in the UK soon. And if you're in the US, you can find us on target.com, figgybeauty.com, Amp Beauties, boutique stores. Yeah, you can just go to our website and you'll see all the places you can find us.
Amazing, amazing. That's, and how long has Figgy Beauty been established?
Figgy Beauty started in 2020, but
That's
the
incredible
doors,
growth.
yeah, so, well, 2021, sorry, 2020 was COVID, so it was the year after COVID. But the doors, so to speak, to Figgy only opened in February of 2023 because it took me that long to get the products right.
Hmm.
I was, that whole space was just research and development, testing, retesting, redoing it, sending it back. Um,
Yeah.
so it was a long road to just get to the point where I was happy with the products.
Amazing, amazing. That's super inspiring. So yeah, so my listeners love a bit of inspiration from our guests, and I know obviously you have experienced, stress and anxiety firsthand, but what kind of tools do you currently use for yourself, for your own mental, physical, emotional health?
Well, it depends on the day and it depends on where I am at emotionally. There are all the boring things that you just cannot escape and you just have to do every day, like finding quiet moments, trying to be mindful, having good bedtime routines, eating well, all the boring stuff that
Mhm.
we wish we could skip. But then after that, it really just I think the biggest lesson is getting to a point where you're more in tune with what your body is telling you so that you are able to react to it in that time and space. So, for example, I've been struggling a lot with my panic the last week, a lot. But I've been on a very intense travel schedule. I've been under a lot of emotional pressure. So I know kind of the triggers. So what I would do now, which sounds maybe crazy, but I'm here today doing podcasts, but the whole of yesterday and the whole of tomorrow I won't be in the office. I'm spring cleaning. There's
Mhm.
just something about a toothbrush and a dirty tile
Yeah.
and spending hours cleaning it and repacking my cupboards that feels like it puts my soul to rights. So I'm
Mhm.
listening to music, I'm cleaning out the house, I'm feeling like I'm making some structure in my life, and I'm not just sitting here ruminating in all my own thoughts and stressing out even more. And it helps me feel that when things like this happen, the first thing that goes is my sleeping routine. And
Mm.
when I'm so physically tired from doing such physical work,
Yeah.
it helps me fall asleep faster and stay asleep. So it depends on the day. It depends on
Mm.
where I'm at in the journey. The most important things is just tuning in and being honest with yourself. And we don't tend to do that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's really important for people to recognize and giving them permission that it doesn't have to be this set, you have to do this, this, this on this day. And if you don't, then, as you mentioned, like, meditation, yoga, all of these
Yeah.
things, but actually just tuning into what you need. I did a meditation earlier, um, this morning. I was actually recording it for somebody else, but as I was recording it, I heard like stuff for myself come through. And that was literally, don't go for a run today, go and just sit on the bench in the forest. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll do that. Thank you. Um, so yeah, it is just giving ourselves permission and tuning in and tapping in. So thank you.
But it's
Um,
also, what we need to realize about that is if we don't do that, we can't show up for the most of the time we don't do that is because we feel guilty. I
mm,
should be doing this. I should be packing lunch. I should rather be picking up my kid from school a little bit earlier. So you're always feeling guilty about what you're not doing. But we don't recognize how badly we show up for others if we're not our full selves.
mhm,
So, for example, for me, if I have a panic attack, it's not just about having a panic attack, it's about the 5 days post panic attack that it takes to recover and that my family needs to deal with and sees. So, if I feel bad and I'm not in a good space and I feel I need to leave the office today at 4, and I convince myself, no, I still need to stay late, and I have a panic attack the next day, I've wasted a week
yeah.
because I'm zero on a contract for a week instead of just taking those 2 hours. I
Mhm.
could have taken 2 hours, and it helps to kind of reframe it in your mind that way, especially for people like us that tend to be so hard on ourselves and so
Mhm.
perfectionistic in everything we do.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. And then my podcast is the Be Free podcast. Freedom is like one of my core values, just that sensation. And I just wondered what makes you feel free?
Oh, what makes me feel free? I think the thing that makes me there are so many things, but there's one constant, I think, and that is truly bare feet, butt on the ground next to my dear friend, a willow tree in my garden.
Mm.
I keep a piece of her wherever I go, wherever I travel. So, just sitting there with my back against her trunk, my feet touching the grass, my bum on the ground, and just closing my eyes and listening to the sounds around. That's the freest I think I ever feel because that's the only moments that to me, and that's hard for me because with anxiety, your mind is always racing.
Mm.
Sometimes it honestly feels like you're going crazy. Like you want to actually climb inside your mind and tell your mind to just be quiet.
Yeah. I know that I had that in the shower this morning. I'm like, wow, who are you having this conversation with?
And those, even if it's just 30 seconds, those are the only moments where I feel like I have silence.
Mhm. Beautiful. Yeah, and yeah, nature is such a
Yeah.
powerful healer, and yeah, getting grounded, connecting to the earth. That sounds absolutely amazing. So for anybody who has listened today or watched today and wants to connect with you more, what would be the best way for people to connect with you? I can pop all your links below as well, but what would be the best way for people to connect?
So I would advise you to follow us on Instagram, figgy.beauty, um, TikTok at Figgy Beauty, but we are launching a Facebook group which will be announced on Instagram. So follow us on there because from the middle of May toward the end of July, we have an enormous amount of events and just really big surprises coming up in the UK and in Scotland. So if you want to join us for some of those events, if you want to come out and see us, or maybe the other really great guests that will be there to entertain you, then be sure to follow those pages and see what's coming up.
Awesome. Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited for you and everything. Everything. It seems like everything is aligning and yeah, the right people are finding your products and it's exciting times.
Thank
So,
you.
is there anything else you want to add before we wrap things up today?
No, I think I've just um, tried to be as authentic as
Mhm.
possible, and I know that it can be so hard to be on this journey, especially when you're looking towards others that's been through it. It's so easy to be caught in this web where the powers that be tell you that, oh, they were where you once were and they did something to fix it and they have this golden ticket and you can do it too. And, you know, only you have the solutions.
Yeah.
No one else does. So don't measure yourself to that. Take what works for you. Be very careful with the information you ingest and just walk your own journey.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, thank you for showing up today with such truth and authenticity. And I have no doubt that, yeah, many people will come follow you after this. And yeah, I'm sure they will find your story super, super duper inspiring. So thank you very much. I have absolutely adored this. I'm glad that we've connected in this way. And I will look forward to catching up with you soon, maybe in person.
Oh, that would be so great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.